Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to the May Trader Vision 2020 User Workshop. For the recording, it's May 17th, 2018. My name's Ed Carter, and for anybody who doesn't know, I'm the creator, architect behind Trader Vision. And tonight we'll go through, I've got about 14 prepared slides or so. Then I'll give a quick overview, answer questions, and then we'll plan a few trades. So I hope to keep it to an hour, but if it runs a little bit long, it runs long. And I'll stay until your questions are all answered and everything is set to go. Okay, let's get started here. So our agenda for this evening is to cover, well, I've got a lot of questions by emails, not only questions, but feedback from people who are frustrated, people who are really doubting themselves and not knowing what it takes to succeed. Part of that is that we are all susceptible to human emotions. That's why marketers market the way they do. And in this industry in particular, there tend to be a ton of advertisements that come to us, spam emails and what have you. And it's all get-rich-quick stuff. It's all, win 1,000 trades in a row and turn $5,000 into $1 million next year. That sort of garbage. And that's exactly what it is garbage. There are a lot of things to consider when you're trading, and there are a lot of things that are necessary but not sufficient in themselves. And we're going to talk about some of that tonight. I'm also going to give you a quick grasp of what Trader Vision can do so that you can then match that into the what does it take to succeed and see what Trader Vision can do and what it can't do to help you in that regard. I'll give a quick overview of the product and answer any questions you have, and then we'll plan a few trades. POC, if you go to the upper just left of center of your screen, there is a blue cross kind of frame type thing. If you click that, that should resize your screen. If you want to go full screen, there's a black frame that you can also click there, and that will take you to a full screen mode. So that should take care of the resizing. So again, thank you everybody for coming. I know it was a nice spring night, kind of one of the first ones we've had, and it's tough to sit in front of a computer at those times. So let's start out with what does it take to succeed at trading. The first thing that I want to tell people that I get some emails that trigger this sort of thing is, number one, it's a job, it's a profession, it's a career. It's going to take work. I know that you've been marketed to by these idiots that try to sell you on the dream of 5 minutes a week and make a $20,000 recurring income, and that's just not how trading works. People that go for those get-rich-quick schemes, they end up broke pretty quickly. So you can't buy into that. You've got to realize this is a job. It's going to take work. It's going to take persistence. It's supposed to take hard work, persistence, and discipline. If it was easy, everybody would do it and the value would be arbitraged away. So keep that in mind. There's no getting around it. It takes work, it takes some thought, and it takes some discipline. Let's look at this another way. And these are 3 sayings that I've either modified or stolen from somebody I've heard over the years. But they are all true and they all lead to the point that I want to make. A dream, in this case, becoming financially independent or wealthy, without a specific goal is just a fantasy. And a goal without a plan is just wishful thinking. There we go. And a plan without a process to make that happen is just false hope. And you need to keep these things in mind. We'll come back to this later tonight, but keep these things in mind. You need to have a goal, you need to have a plan, you need to have a process. Something that you need to keep in mind, and I mentioned this earlier, there are many things that are necessary for success, such as a particular setup that's proven to be successful in predicting short-term movements of a stock. But there's no single setup that is the magic answer to trading. So I don't care whether that's the rounded bottom breakout, the J hook, some moving average crossover, somebody's whiz bang indicator. There is no perfect setup. And while having some setup is necessary, having a setup alone is not sufficient. The fact of the matter is, trading requires many different concepts, many different elements that you have to have in place in order to succeed on an ongoing basis. And tonight we're going to talk about some of those. So as we step forward here, remember that things are both necessary and sufficient. And very few things are sufficient. It's usually a conglomeration of many things. So what are some of the elements that we need to master if we're going to have consistent success as a trader? Well, I would argue you need to have good goals, as we talked about. You've got to consider position sizing. You've got to think about risk management. You've got to identify and avoid mental mistakes that you make, because we're all human and we make them. We need to control our emotions, have a way to do that. We need to track our performance and improve our consistency and improve our gains. We need to find and select the right trades, develop and adhere to our trading rules, consider the market conditions, and look at the charts such as trends and patterns and particular signals, knowing where support and resistance are relative to a potential trade, looking at the reward risk to make sound trading decisions. And then we have to have parameters in place so we can manage trades. And as far as I'm concerned, these are kind of the minimum. And to be honest with you, in every webinar, every course, every system that I've ever seen marketed, it hits on some of these things. It doesn't hit on all of them. And frankly, while all of them may be necessary, none of them individually are sufficient. Having, as I said, having that great setup makes very little difference in the long run if you don't have good position sizing and you make mental mistakes like chasing or getting too greedy and not taking profits, or being scared and taking losses, or letting losses run to avoid booking a loss. So all these things are necessary, but by themselves they're not sufficient. The second, with that said, the second thing that I hear all the time from different traders is, I can't handle this all. The program's too complex. Trading is too complex. There's too many balls to keep in the air. I'm not up to it. I'm here to tell you that you can do it. Thousands of people have been successful at it. And it's a matter of getting organized and approaching things systematically. You've all heard the saying, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is, one bite at a time. And that's how you need to approach trading as well. You have that list of all the things that we need to consider, and then we need to make sure that we consider them each time. So as far as trader vision is concerned, If it's too much for you to deal with all at once, what you need to do is close down the widgets you're not using. And if one widget is overwhelming for you at first, then only deal with one section of the widget at a time. As I said, you eat that elephant one bite at a time, and eventually you'll get where you're going. It's the other expression that people use often is, a trip of 1,000 miles starts with one step. So do the one step, focus on that, and then do the next one. That's all there is to it. Just having the determination to keep moving forward, keep doing them step after step, and having a systematic approach or process that keeps you on the path towards your goal. That's all there is to trading. As I said, if Trader Vision is too much for you, and this is true whether you're using Trader Vision or trying to do it on paper and spreadsheets, which I know a lot of people that do, and focus on that one piece at a time. Here's the trick, or the reason I think Trader Vision is so useful, and that is everybody that I know, and this includes myself. For years, I did all this manually on paper, printing out charts, writing notes, recording things in spreadsheets. The truth of the matter is you will not, it's just human nature, you will not put in the work to do all of the steps when you do it that way. Your analysis won't be as thorough. It just takes too much time. There's too much bookkeeping and record keeping involved, and you will just start to let things slide, and that's when you get into real trouble. That's one of the advantages of having a large and comprehensive system like Trader Vision. The downside of it is that it can seem overwhelming if you don't keep the right mindset. You're going to try to eat that elephant one bite at a time. Okay, so let's talk about what Trader Vision can do for you. And I know that most of you know this already. This is really intended for people who are new, and I know there are some, and a number of them that said they were going to watch the video. Trader Vision is really designed around this continuous improvement process. Think of this as if you were looking down from the top of a set of spiral staircase. It continues to spiral upward, and that's the idea, is to keep the same steps but continuing to move upward, improving your overall results. So the first thing that we do with Trader Vision is help you set SMART goals. And SMART, as an acronym, stands for specific, measurable, achievable or attainable, and that means they can be broken down into smaller steps, realistic, and timely goals. And we can talk about that more later. I don't really want to get too far into each one of these points tonight, but I just want to give you a taste. It helps you select better trades because you're working against a set process. You know the rules, you know the setups you're looking for, and you can see, does this trade meet the rules that I've set for myself? You validate those trades in terms of your own rules or in terms of the reward risk and so forth. It allows you to plan out a trade and look at different scenarios. You'll know what happens if I get stopped out. How many dollars, what percentage does that mean that I'm going to lose? And weigh that against where do I expect this stock to go, and what will be the dollars and percentages when I get there. And if I only sell part of my position there and hold the rest and reach a second goal or a third goal or whatever, what will that do for me overall in the trade? Understanding these things is a key to having your emotions under control. It automatically logs and tracks all of your trades so that you know exactly what's going on. You can come back to a trade a year later, 5 years later, and say, this is what I was seeing. These are the notes that I took. These are the market characteristics, the ticker's characteristics at that time. And this is what I had planned to do, and then this is how the trade actually played out. It helps you identify and eliminate the problems that you have in trading, whether that's, there are a lot of behavioral finance concepts such as being anchored, or chasing on an entry, or having too much fear and being scared out only to see the thing run on you, that sort of thing. Violating your plan. Those sort of problems. You need to identify them, see what that does to your performance when you commit those types of mistakes, and force yourself to stop doing that. All of these things, understanding your problems, understanding the trade's parameters in terms of, if I get stopped out, I lose this. If I hit my target, I make that. This helps you to control your emotions. You're not tied to every tick in the chart, driving you crazy. It's much more systematic, much more organized. Personally, myself, I almost never look at a position once I enter it. That's not true. I look at it on a nightly basis to move my stops. But I don't watch it during the day because I don't care. I have my plan in place. I know where my stop's at. I know where my target is. I know why I entered it, and that it still looks good to me. That's why I'm still in it. Other than that, I let the market work. And I don't have to worry about, oh my God, we had a 10-minute downtrend, or that sort of thing. And this whole process then helps you by looking at the records you've got and looking at the statistics. We can talk about that later. Helps you analyze and improve your trading, and then feeds back into increasing your goals and moving forward, continuing that upward spiral. So in short, Trader Vision is all about helping you do more of what works and less of what doesn't work. And here's the key: for you. And it's different for every person. We all have our own emotions. We all have our own mental baggage, our own proclivities to certain mental mistakes, whether they're fallacies or just poor thinking. And we've often said this in the trading room, and a lot of people don't buy it, but I cannot trade Steve Risner's trade plans. He cannot trade mine. I cannot trade Rick's trades consistently. He cannot trade mine. Each of us has our own individual personalities, our own individual emotions, our own individual levels of discipline, and that means that we trade differently, and we have to build a system, build a process that is fit for us. So that's the key. That's pretty much what I wanted to talk about in terms of an overview. I do want to tell you some things that are on the development schedule, just so you know for the future. There are some pieces that are I still want to add to the application, and they are on the development process in the development schedule. One is charting improvements. And Pak, I know that you're here. We had traded emails about this. We know that we've got some major shortcomings there we need to improve. I've said this quite openly. Frankly, I use TC2000. When I use different brokerages, I've always used TC2000 because I found it to be the best charting and scanning application available. It's very intuitive, very easy to use, and it's very powerful. And I hope someday to have Trader Vision at that level, but I'll flat out tell you we're not there yet. We've got a long way to go. All I can say is they had a 20-year head start. So I like my chances for catching up before then. We're going to be adding a scanning widget. Right now we do auto identification of the candle signals and the candle patterns according to my own criteria, but we'll be adding a scanning widget so that you can define your own scans or use the ones we provide if you prefer, to help you find tickers to add to a watch list. We'll be adding some user-specific or user-specified, in other words, configurable trade rules. So you can put in that you want to know for every trade, is the 3 EMA above the 8 EMA, or is, whatever it is. Whatever your trade rules are, what your liquidity rules are, if a stock, meets your liquidity standard or not. We'll be adding in brokerage integrations, working on Tradier and TradeHawk first, then either Interactive Brokers or Thinkorswim. TradeStation talked to us about possibly doing it, but I have not heard back from them that they have made any progress on their application interface. So when they have that available, we'll take care of that as well. Some of the others are simply not interested in integrating to other applications, and those ones, your I don't know, Fidelity and those types of brokerages, there's nothing we can do for you in that case. And then, of course, a whole raft of option-specific functionality that we need to add to options enable Trader Vision. And so that's what's on the development schedule. Okay, let's return back to what we talked about earlier. So what does it take to be a successful trader? A dream without a goal is just a fantasy. A goal without a plan is just wishful thinking. A plan without a process is just false hope. So if you don't have goals and plans and a process in place, you're dreaming if you think you're going to win. You will lose in the end, over the long run. To be consistently successful, you need, at a minimum, to have those things in place. And that's my firm belief, and that comes from 20 years of trading here. The only time I ever was successful is once I realized these things. And, about 2000, I guess it was like January of 2003, I finally bit the bullet and have been process focused like a laser ever since, and I've been very successful since then. Okay, you've heard enough of me just zammering on, so let's do enough with the slides. Okay, let's look at a demo here. So I'm just going to walk through the pieces real quick. If you have questions, feel free to ask, and I will address them. And then I'll give you a chance for questions overall later if you haven't thought of them by now. The first thing we have is for every account in your system, whatever you've set up, and you can have as many accounts as you want, you set goals, and you have multiple goals. Over time, hopefully those goals continue to increase as you improve as a trader. And you set your goals that break down into monthly requirements, or you can break them into weekly requirements, and then you set a plan to reach those goals, what that means, the specific parameters that you need to manage on a trade-by-trade basis, your win ratio, the size of your wins, the size of your losses, the number of trades you're going to do per period, whether that's a month or a week, how much of your account you're going to put into each trade, and what that means on an overall basis. And then that tells you, are you reaching your goals or you're not reaching your goals. What have I got here? I guess I have just been playing around with some numbers. Let's make this 125,000. Let's see how that's a little better. Okay. So anyway, we've got goal planning, and you can, as I said, you can have many goals that you set over time. The next thing is you have an account manager where you can set up your accounts, and that includes setting up account-specific parameters like what do you consider to be a long-term trend, what do you consider to be the short-term trend, what do you want to measure that account against. So for example, if you're a short-term, you have an account that's for short-term trading, you might trade smaller cap stocks in that, and you want to measure it against a certain index or ETF. If you are it's a long-term hold account, you might have a different index or ETF you want to measure that against. Rick, let me answer your question here. Rick, is there a way to get a combined overall dashboard for performance goals that combines all the accounts? And okay, so and this is, are you talking about in goals or in performance or in dashboard or in what specific piece are you talking about here, Rick? At this point in time, there is not. And I'm trying to think, I mean, I could do a report on that basis, but since every account's going to have its own balance and its own goal, I don't know how you would, I don't think you would want to do an additive or an average, so it would have to be, right. So each account is separate, but we could do a report that shows you all of them in one place, and that's certainly something that I can do probably pretty quickly. And I can do that in reports. Let me just make a note on this. All goals, all accounts, one report. Yeah, so I can do that, but I can't think, maybe if I put my mind to it, I can come up with a way. I'm just not sure how we could manage. It would be pretty crowded because I know some people that have 5 or 6 accounts. Don't ask me why, but they do. But it would be this graph would be crazy busy if we had 5 different sets of goals listed here. But I'll come up with something. Thanks for the idea, and we'll see if we can't make that happen. And the same thing for performance. When we get to that, I'll look at it. But yeah, we can do a total, I don't know what you want to call it, a system total or across all accounts, what your performance has been, that sort of thing. Again, I think that's something that's doable. Okay, back to the account manager again. So the account details is where you set up the specifics of an account. You could set up to be connected to a particular broker when we enable that. And it lists all of your transactions. The idea is that this will allow you to keep TraderVision in sync with your brokerage. So if they charge you a fee, you can add a transaction by clicking the plus sign to add a deposit or show that there was a fee or take a withdrawal, whatever it is, so that your account is in sync with your brokerage. I see someone typing there, so I'm going to hang on a second. Give me a chance to grab a drink. POC, I think so, but I'm not positive. I'm not affiliated with TradeHawk in any way. And frankly, I don't trade any of the Canadian exchanges. But I would look into that, and I think I can give you some contact information here. The thing to know is that TradeHawk is a software. It's kind of the execution software front end, and Tradier, Tradier, is the brokerage, and you can contact Tradier. Let me post that for you here. Service at tradierbrokerage.com. Or there's that phone number, 980-272-3880. And they'll tell you the specifics of their brokerage and what it can do. I can tell you that that Doug and Rick have negotiated better rates than they offer the general public. So if you use that link, you will get better brokerage rates than they offer if that's the way you decide to go. Okay, Rick, let me answer your question. And I'm sorry I don't have the answer for you on that, POC. I don't trade Canadian stocks, so on the Canadian exchange on Toronto or Vancouver. So I know you do, but I can't address that because that's not something I've tried. I think they do, but again, I'm not positive. So just ask them. Rick, on the planning flow, I use a paper account to plan out possible trades, and then if I decide to take the trade, move it over to an actual account so only real trades are in the account. Is this necessary? In Trader Vision, the answer is no. And we'll get to this here in just a minute. Let me finish up. Let me just get there in a second. So that's pretty much account manager. The idea is to keep your account in sync with your brokerage, give you the ability to customize each account to your own parameters, what you consider to be the time frames for trends, what you want to compare yourself against, what brokerage fees you might have if you have different commissions in different accounts, that sort of thing. Under charting, there's not a lot to say about charting. It is a very, let's call it basic charting package at this point. We know that we have some problems. There are a list of available indicators at this point. We know that we have some problems. There's a underlying control package that we used rather than coding all the math ourselves. And unfortunately, it was written by some programmer that doesn't know anything about trading. He did not understand that he was looking at data the wrong way. So basically, he started counting backwards instead of forwards. So you can understand when you look at it. But it's a problem that we will solve. And as I said, that's on our development schedule. We've got open tickets into this developer. If he doesn't solve it very quickly, we'll rewrite it ourselves. But it's a basic package, and as I mentioned this last night, for any of you who don't know, there are a number of exchanges that we have data for, not just the U.S. Of course, your NYSE, your NASDAQ, your Amex, well, whatever, it's NYSE market now they call it. But we also have the Canadians. The .TOs is for the Toronto Exchange. .V is for the Vancouver/Calgary Exchange in Canada. .L for London. .SI for Singapore. .AX for Australia. .NZ for New Zealand. Equals X for Forex, and we're working on both the Chinese and Indian exchanges as well. There's 2 in each country. So there's Hong Kong and Shanghai. There's also, I think it's Shanghai, and yeah, I think it's Shanghai. And in India, there's the NSE in Bombay. We're working on those. But it's very basic. If you find something you like, you can right-click and add it to a watch list. It's a very basic package where you can input lines. Whether it's trend lines, you can change the colors and change the thicknesses. You can, of course, click on something and delete it later. Same thing with circles, and you can add text, and you can add horizontal and vertical lines. You can add, as I said, Bollinger Bands, RSI, MACD, moving averages of any length you want, exponential averages of any length you want, ATR, and then fibs. We have not got the vol stop at this point. Before anybody asks, we will add that at some point. The navigation hints up here tell you how to zoom in and zoom out. Basically, you drag up and left to zoom out, down and right to zoom in. and the volume bars are what you see at the bottom here. Note that our data sources leave a blank spot for weekends. So there is a gap, which is a little bit different than some packages. Some packages do it this way, some packages do it other ways. But this is how our data source does it. Watchlist, again, it's pretty self-explanatory. You can have as many watch lists as you want. If you want to rename a list, you can grab any of your existing lists or save it under a new name. You can delete entries by clicking on the X. You can add entries by typing it in there. You can start a new trade in trade log from one of the entries. You can look at the chart of one of the tickers by clicking on the chart button. You can modify which fields are being shown by using the customized gear wheel to select which fields you want to see. Does the watch list have features that might be good compared to TC2000? I'm not sure exactly how to answer that question. I can really only tell you what we use here, and I there are some neat things, like it shows you the last 5 candles without looking at a chart. But I know that if you're like me on TC2000, all of your watch lists are embedded in a chart or right next to a chart, so that's not such a cool feature. But this gives you a quick view of what's been happening in a chart, what the change is for the day in dollars and percent. You can see where you're at in the 52-week range. That's kind of a different thing. But I think all of these things can probably be accomplished in TC2000 by custom columns or creating your own condition that you then use as a column in a custom layout. So I hesitate to say that there's anything that we can do in particular that TC2000 can't, but it's just the ability, trying to give you the ability at the long-term vision for the product. Okay, so from the trade log, you mean? Yeah, well, yeah, okay, yeah, that's something we could probably do. I'm just making myself a note. And that would definitely be something that they don't do for you. Although, no, I don't think you can do that in TC2000, but you could do a bunch of, what do they call those, stoplights or whatever they call that. So, again, I don't want to sell Trader Vision short, and I don't want to give anybody the false impression. TC2000 is an excellent program. As I said, I use it every day. And I've used it for 20 years, but or at least 15 years anyway. But they've got big bucks behind them, and they've got a large development staff, and they've had a 20-year head start. And so I just, there's no way that we can compare to them at this point. But the long-term vision of the product is to give you, in Trader Vision, a tool that can handle your trading process from soup to nuts, and including the trading at some point. So that's where we want to go. And that's the pieces that there are pieces that are just missing from all of the brokerages and all of the existing packages that are out there. And they all revolve around planning, tracking, and analyzing your performance. Everything seems to be in this industry focused on getting you to do more transactions, more trades, so that the brokerage can make more commissions, do trades quicker because you've been sold the whiz bang idea of more trading is better. This signal pattern system, whatever, wins every time, sort of thing. And we want to give you an alternative to that. Let's move on here. After you've found the charts and you've chosen them off your watch list, trade log, which is a log of your trades, is the next feature we want to talk about here, next widget. And this goes back to a question that Rick talked about. Do you need to keep a separate account for planning out a trade and then move it to a live account? And the answer is no. You can see here, if you look at this list, how many planned trades that I've got that I never entered. Now this is a demo account for doing demos, so there's going to be a lot of that. But even in my live system, I have the same situation. I plan a lot more trades than I ever enter. And what you do is you can just go in here and clean them up after some period of time. If you say, well, gee, I never entered Ford and I'm not going to look at that again, the price has changed so much, whatever, just highlight as many as you want and click delete. So clean up the old trades you didn't take. And if you do take them, we'll look at trades here in a bit. But if you do take, let's just look at something I know I entered a couple today. Let's look at this. So on this trade, I had a plan in place, and when my price got hit, I just moved it to execution and placed the order. So if it never meets my trigger, I just don't move it to execution, and there's no harm, no foul. I know what the exact layout is. I know what I will get if I'm reach my first goal and reach my second target. I know what happens if I'm going to be stopped out, and I can see all of that prior to entry, but then I don't have to enter. Rick, at the moment, it's not for any of them. But what will happen, and I don't have this enabled in this demo at the moment, but we have worked out some integration through a brokerage called MBT, which is part of Ally Invest. If any of you are familiar with Trade King, that used to be Trade King bought MBT, and then Ally Invest bought Trade King. So how's that work? But basically, you click the place order, and it opens up a dialog box that gets you to confirm sending this order. So confirm that you want to send either an individual order or a group of orders, so an order and a stop and a target exit as well, and sends them as whatever type of order you want. You want to send a market order, you want to send a stop order, you want to send a limit order or group of limit orders. That's typically what we allow. So it would then execute, send them to the brokerage once that's enabled, and you would get a confirmation back, and that confirmation would show in your account manager, but you would also get a pop-up dialog box here that says that order was executed, and your prices would reflect the fills. So is the performance of each account calculated from the execution section, even if not placed? And the answer is no. If you don't place an order, it has no impact on the account balance of an account. As you can see, let me close this out here. As you can see, I had a couple hundred trades that I've entered in this account, and I think I've only actually closed half a dozen or a dozen trades in this account, and I have 4 or 5 open. all of these ones that were planned, even if they were planned and then moved to execution, had no effect whatsoever on the account balance if they were not placed. Okay, you're confused. I don't have a brokerage yet. If I created a trade plan and I moved it to execution, or I skipped the plan altogether and I just created the plan in the execution section, which you can do, clicking place order, and let's just do one. Let me close here. Let me take one of my open trades and close it. Let's look at TCAP. Okay, so TCAP, what happens here is I click place order. I want to say that I reached this order today. I click place order and it fills in today's date. I can change to a different date if I prefer, and the time if that's important to you. If you decide you don't want to place it, you click the eraser and it goes back to unplaced. But you click place order and it's placed. It has not been sent in the real world to a brokerage. Right now this is keeping track of things for you. When we are connected to a brokerage, that place order button will function differently. When you're connected to a brokerage and you have enabled brokerage integration, when you click that place order button, it will pop up a dialog box that will send an order to your broker. But until that time, until you are connected to a brokerage, clicking the place order button is only dealing with Trader Vision records. So it has nothing to do with brokerage records. It's only Trader Vision records. But again, the account balance listed in Trader Vision will not be affected until the place, for a particular order, until the place order button is clicked. So the fact that I have this exit number 3 at $12.38 for 50 shares, this has not had any effect at all on my account because I have not clicked place order yet. Okay? I hope that makes sense. I've got things blown up larger size so people can see. Will you be able to have it both ways later? Within a single account, I'm not sure how that would work. If I understand what you're asking. Okay. So yeah, if you have two accounts, absolutely. The integration will happen at the account level. Yeah, so in the accounts, this is where you would set up your broker integration. If you don't have it set up, then that account is not connected to a brokerage. And, whoops, account details in it back. So if you have an account that's not connected to a brokerage, for that account in the trade record within trade log, click place order will act just like this one does now. But if you do have it set up to be integrated with your broker, then that place order button will act to send orders to your brokerage. I hope that clears it up. I thought you meant within one account have it both ways, and I don't think so. I can't think of a way to make that work really well. So at any rate, this is what trade log's like. You can change the account you're looking at, change the time frame you want to look at. If you want to, go back to 2017 trades, or you go back to the last 6 months, or the last 3 months, or just the last month or whatever. You can do that. You can search for all trades with a particular ticker. So let's just say I want to see all trades for Petrobras. There it is. I can pick all trades for a particular day, or for the long position, or I can look at just planned or just closed by just typing that in. As I said, you can export this data, I guess I haven't said, in a bunch of different formats. CSV is the typical one for importing into something like Excel, a spreadsheet, but you can export it as XML or HTML. SYLK is a Microsoft format they've come up that's specific. It's kind of like CSV on steroids. It's specific to spreadsheets. And then, of course, XML. So you can export trades and import trades in many different formats. Cut, copy, and paste, delete records, so you could move a record from one account to another account, or move a group of records, that sort of thing. That's all possible. The plus sign, of course, adds a new trade, opens up a new trade record. Okay, Rex says I have multiple accounts set up and therefore multiple tabs on top of my screen with identical names. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Somebody else sent me a picture of their account, and I noticed that they had multiple, for example, multiple copies of trade log and multiple copies of goals and multiple copies of something else, dashboard or whatever open. I guess let me think about that. I mean, yes, we can, in the same way that we can show you the chart that's open at the time and within the widget. We certainly could tell you the account that's open within trade log, or within dashboard, or within a performance. So that is absolutely something we could do. I don't think that's going to be a fairly hard report. What I don't know, and I have not done the testing, so I would just have to check. But what I don't know is what the performance impact is on the application when you have a bunch of copies of trade log and a bunch of copies of account manager or watch list or whatever open. I'm not sure, and I need to check and do some testing to see if there's any impact on application performance. So I will look into that, and I will also look into having, like the chart, have widget tab show the account that is open. Yeah, so I'll look into that. Pak, let me go back to one of your earlier questions here. So back here a little ways, you asked if there was a summary write-up for each software update, what is added, what version or what functionality is changed, that sort of thing. And the short answer is no, there is not. And the reason is okay, yeah. I will look into that, Rick. Well, let me answer Pak first. The reason that I don't have a list, and somebody else has asked me in the past to write up an update on what functionality, what fixes, what bugs have been closed, what features have been added in every update. And the answer is that I haven't done it because it's extra work, is what it really comes down to. We're doing updates at the moment. We try to do one about once a week or so, and I just don't have time for the extra work. I'm very hard pressed to do my own trading now with the work I do. You don't care. It doesn't matter to you, but I'm basically working with a European programmer, so I'm up all night with my programmer, testing features and bugs and giving him direction on our development. I'm doing these webinars in the afternoon and evenings, doing support during the days, and I don't need any more things thrown on my list. So that's really the answer, is I'm too lazy or just haven't got around to doing that for every update. I think we're at, I don't know, what is it, 136 or 35, or I'm not sure which version I've got open now. Let's see, I've got 134 open now. So we had 56 major updates and 134 minors, and that is over a period of what? Let's call it 3.5 months, 4 months maybe. Rick, if you have a problem like that, you need to let me know, because we can't solve it if we're unaware of it. What I need to do is I need to get, and if you could take a screenshot of the error message, that would be great. But what I need to do is have you send me your log file and a description of exactly what was happening. And then I can try to replicate it, and as soon as we figure out what caused it, solve it. And that log file is, let me show it to you. So for Mac users, this will be different in Finder, but for a Windows user, it's under app data. So whatever your Windows user, so it's going to be, whoops, let's try that again. C:, or the C drive, the users directory, then whatever your Windows username is, mine is ESC95, and then app data, which is a hidden directory on some people, then local, then Trader Vision 2020 version 2, and then logs. You cannot send it while you have the application open, but it should be sorted and have the date embedded in the name as well as the date embedded in the date modified. And just send us that log when that error happened, and that will help us immensely in figuring out what may have happened. Okay, so this is running long, guys. Here, let me move ahead, and so we can get some trades planned for you. The dashboard is intended just as a, what it says, a quick snapshot or synopsis of what's going on in each account, the current account balance, what you have open in dollars, funds available to trade, how many open trades you've got, and then the percentage breakdowns. You can see it in the pie-shaped form there as well. If you had shorts, they would be a different pie slice for the shorts as well. I don't have any open at the moment. The open trades list down here not only shows you where you're at with an open profit loss in dollars and percent, but also then lets you double click it to open a trade if you want. So double clicking it will open it up in trade log, and then you can take action on it. So that's basically the purpose of the dashboard. Something else that you can do is look at recent performance. It defaults to 30 days, but you can look at what did I do today. I know some people want to keep a day-by-day profit and loss. Well, just change that to a 1, and it will show you what your profit and loss is for the day if you had any trades that you closed today, or the last month, or the last 6 months, or the last year. You can change that to whatever you want for quick and dirty performance. The performance widget, I talked about this last night. If you want to go in depth on this, I would suggest that you look into last night's webinar recording, which is available through the website under products, Trader Vision 2020 subscription, Trader Vision TV 2020 tutorials. You can also get to it here from the application under Help, Tutorial Videos. And at the bottom of that page, it'll say the 516 workshop. It was about a 50 or 55 minute recording last night. But you can change the period you want to look at if you want a different period. Same as our other, it's a standard interface. We've got statistics about the account and about what you do on average, and what your longest win streak is and the longest loss streak and the largest win and largest loss. Then you get into reports, and we will improve this so that it breaks down by groups. But essentially there are 4 categories of report. There's a breakdown, there's a set of numbers related to the counts within the category, the dollar performance within the category, and then the percentage performance within a category. And that's broken across a whole raft of different groups. So based on the candle signals you trade, based on the discipline rating you gave yourself for the trade, based on the emotions that you said you were feeling at time of entry and at time of exit, based on the day of the week you entered and the day of the week you exited, based on the hold time of the trade, and long versus the number of entries and number of exits, and long versus the market biases in terms of long-term positive, short-term negative, that sort of thing, versus the patterns that you're trading. And then the same thing as the longs with the shorts. The short for the number of entries and exits, and short for the various pairs of market trends. So that's basically it. And as I said, we should be able to pretty easily add some sort of summary report for you that can get you to what's happening across all of my accounts. Although we won't probably go into all these breakdowns, but we can do an overview type thing that lets you look across all of your accounts. And that's probably going to be true as well within the goals section. We can probably print out a report that gives you the specific numbers, and I'm not sure about graphs, but certainly numbers across all of your accounts. Okay, let's go back to trade log and plan a couple trades. In fact, let me open up TC2000 here. I had a few that I picked out. Does anybody have any tickers they would like to look at in particular, so I can show you how this the tool works if you don't know, or just plan out some trades if you do know? Tell you what, I'll go ahead with one that I had, and if you think of something that interests you, you let me know. So one of the, and I entered this trade today, was MNK. I talked about this last night. This is a rounded bottom breakout. It had made a nice little run there, but I did not want to chase. I identified this level about 1560 as a potential resistance level, and it has been nicely consolidating right that level. And when we got this nice candle today, I bought on the breakout above the highs of the last couple days. My first target is set up here at 1758, and then I got a second target up here about 19 bucks. I didn't put in a third target, but theoretically I could see us having a third target up here about 22.14. So let's look at Trader Vision and see if we can't. Well, we'll just look at that trade I've got open. Oh, we may have looked at this one already. So this is what the last 5 candles have done. You can see that it reported May 8th before the open. I was using a parameter of $125 acceptable loss. My goal for the trade is $350 long. I was looking for a $16 entry, which I got. I could buy 192 shares, but I only bought 150. and my plan is to exit at 1750 and 1895. I had a 1535 initial stop, and let me go back here and look. I may want to move that. So I'm not going to move that. Yeah, I could move it a touch, but it's hardly worth moving at this point. So I won't do it. Plus, I don't want to have to open up my brokerage to do it right now, and I don't want to break my process. So I will stick to doing that as a single process later tonight. But I could modify my trade there if I want. Let's go ahead and take let's take a chart image. Let's save the chart, and let's save it as okay, we'll just save it there. I'll move it later. So now going back to trade log, we'll go down here and let's add that image to this particular trade. There it is. So it has been added to this trade, and if I want to come in here and look at this trade later, I can see that chart. I could do the same thing with any image. So I could take a Jang or a Snagit image of the TC2000 or whatever I wanted to do. You can see that I have set alarms for each of these additional prices. So when I reach my first exit, I will be given a pop-up message as well as an audio alarm. And the same thing will happen when I reach the second one, or if the price falls and I'm stopped out. I see Shirley writing here, so I'm going to hang on for a moment. While she does that, let me just say that I had $2,400 into the trade, which is less than 2% of the account. I've got less than $100 because I didn't do that full. I probably should have done 200 shares. So I've got only $100 at risk, basically, for a chance to make 350, and that works for me. It's going to give me about a little over 3.5 to 1. Right now, I'm a very, very small portion of towards my goal, so I've only reached 3/100ths of my goal. But I'm sitting on an open. My break even $16, so I'm still doing okay. I'm sitting on what? Sitting on a grand total profit of $10. Kirk, typically I'm around a dozen trades. I've done more, I've done less, but I will tell you quite honestly that I'm so busy with Trader Vision, and I've had some personal things that have had me away from the screen, if you will, all day, every day, that recently have shut me down quite a bit. But typically I'm doing... Oh, okay, so you maybe have a background in software, but yeah, it's tough, and it's the time shifting is a bear too. I should just use American programmers. It would be better, but I've got a really good guy, so yeah, it is, Rick. It is, and I do that as well. So anybody who's used this knows that I'll help you by email, by phone. If we have to, I'll do a remote control session so that we can both see your computer, work on it together. But it's time consuming. So I would like to keep doing about a dozen trades a month. That's what I have always typically averaged. I'm not a day trader. I'm just a swing trader. And very seldom are my trades anything less than 2 or 3 days. And very seldom are they longer than 2 or 3 weeks. So don't go by what you see in this sample account in Trader Vision, because a lot of these trades I have put in and not looked at for a couple months, and then I notice, whoa, I didn't close that one. Okay, Shirley's still typing. Let's so that's this trade. That's where we're at on this. Okay, any recommendations when you are trading the stocks you trade options on? Well, Shirley, I know people who are using this for options. I do not recommend it. It was not intended for options, and it's not going to give you the information you need because of the leverage is just what it comes down to. Not only is the pricing model slightly off, I mean, it's generally, pricing models are pretty close, theoretical models, but they can be off individually here or there. But the leverage is the big thing. A move of $1 in an underlying, can vary greatly depending on the delta you have. And, the amount of leverage you get is also going to change. But I do know that there are some people, and I think maybe I should talk to you offline about this. There are some people using it to track options trades, but it's just not there yet. I understand you want to do it, and I understand that a lot of people are moving towards options as they've become more experienced traders or are ready to branch into that. But the application doesn't have options functionality yet. So I cannot make any recommendation as how to use this for options, because I don't really want people, I don't want to feel responsible if you use it and end up getting yourself into trouble that way. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, then, I guess I would do it just like any of these planned trades. Let's see if I get a, well, this is one I was going to look at later, but you could, just plan a trade out as normal and, see where you think, the prices are going to be. But the problem is that these percentages, that sort of thing, is not going to help you. Frankly, for options trades, I would end up just sticking to my charting package to give me where I thought logical targets were and reasonable places to put a stop, and then use my theoretical model. What brokerage do you use? Do you use Thinkorswim? Use the theoretical model to come up with your prices. Yeah, TOS. So yeah, use the theoretical model. And frankly, I know that Doug, has some great videos on how to do that, and he's talked about it in the past. So that's how I would use it to come up with my stops, for example, and my targets. But you can set your orders, whether it's TOS or another brokerage, based on the underlying or based on the price of the option. And you've got to decide. I don't know that there's a better way, one way or the other. You've got to decide which way you prefer, whether you like to set your orders by the price of the option or the price of the underlying. But I'm pretty sure they can do that conditional orders. Okay, well, how do you close out a trade? Well, I don't want to close this one. I just opened it. But let's go back up. Let's just pick, I think this is the one I looked at earlier, TCAP. So at this point in time, you can see that I've got 50 shares still open. And basically, there are two orders that I can place. I can either place the stop, and that will zero me out, if you will. That will give me 500 shares that have been exited and I entered 500 shares. Or I can place the exit order. And of course, I could change the price of the exit order. If the overall market made a major change, I could say, well, this trade is no longer valid because the overall market is headed in the tank or something. And I could just change this to whatever the current market price is and get out. So basically that's all there is to it. Place the order and that will close the trade. When the number of shares that you entered in the trade execution section equals the number of shares that you have exited, that trade is closed. And it will automatically change up here. You'll see the color change and that will say TCAP closed. Now if you made a mistake, you can reopen it, but that's how it works. POC, that is one way to do it, and I've used trailing stops in the past, percentage-based trailing stops. I know some people use, 25 cent, 50 cent trailing stop, that sort of thing, dollar-based, but I always use percentages. The thing is that I've found that is not the best way to do it, because there are places where it is reasonable to move your stop and reasonable not. So if this, let me grab a drawing tool here. If we got a green candle tomorrow, and so we're up here, does it make sense to trail that stop at 4% or whatever it is? To me, it doesn't. To me, this line is the potential support, and so I want to keep my stop below that potential support until I have another logical place to move it, because I can see us getting up in here, and then let me change colors. Coming back in here to test like this and going back up. So to me, I want to keep my stop pretty tight up below the most recent support for a long, pretty tight above the most recent resistance for a short. And unless this is a huge distance, I probably won't move it. But in this case, I think, let me just draw it this way. I think that right in here is going to become another logical place to consider support or resistance. And so in this case, when we move up here, I might move it up underneath that. But I don't just trail it at 4%. If you're asking, could Trader Vision be set up to do a trailing stop? The answer at this moment is no, but that's a good idea. I will look into that. I have not done that yet. It's on a list of features that I want to add, but I have not done that yet, and I will look into it. Any other tickers that we want to look at here? We're getting a little long in the tooth for this thing, so let's see if we can't maybe plan out one more trade and then call it a night. Anybody have a ticker they're interested in? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you knew about that, Rick. Yeah, you can close any tabs you want, and you close them all. And just have the blank window. And then open them as you need them. So somebody's looking at Baba. Yeah, that's a nice chart. I actually just received a package I bought from them. So I'm helping your ticker for you. I've got a couple more on the way. AliExpress it's a small world. So looks to me like this area right in here has been resistance the last few months so far this year. It also looks to me like we can draw a box here that we've got a little range that we're in. If I was you, I would be looking at possibly putting a stop here. Let's try that again. Shift. Entry on a breakout. And since I know we're at all-time highs here, I'm pretty sure, let's use fibs. And say that I would take some profits there and take some profits there. That's the 38.2 extension of this run. That's the 61.8 extension of that run. That's the 100% extension of that run. So I would set up a trade that looks something like that. And let me just write down those prices so I don't forget. So we're looking at like a 200 entry with whatever that is. 194 stop and a 212 first target and a 219 what do you want to say, 60 second target, and then the third target about 230 150, let's call it. Let's see what that trade would look like. Reported on the 4th, so we're okay there. We've got a lot of things going for us here. We've got 5 bullish factors and no bearish factors. Liquidity is never a problem with these guys. No particular candle signal, but a bunch of bullish, well, a bunch of patterns. There is a bearish pennant pattern possible there that is the only thing that's preventing that from being a 6 green item there. And it really should be 7 because that liquidity is not neutral. That's positive. So let's plan this out. Sorry about that, guys. I need to close this. I've done something crazy. See if it's still there. Yeah, okay, let's try that again. So I said a $200 buy, give or take. 212 first target, 219.50, and 231.50 with a stop of 194. For this particular account that I'm trading, it's going to be a very small position, but just for grins, we'll do that. And that's basically because I'm going to keep $125 maximum loss. I could raise that on a per trade basis if I wanted. But let's just look at selling 5 here. It's hardly worth taking 6% though, but and 5 there and saving the last 10 for the third exit. We'd be getting almost 4 to 1 if we hit all 3 exits. If we just hit the 1 exit, we're only getting 2 to 1. Still, maybe acceptable. If we get the second exit, we're getting closer 2.5 to 1, and then the third exit again. We're talking. Yeah, you work with the scenarios. So, for example, I'm trying to make $350. That's my goal. If I make $350 per trade, that keeps me on track towards my longer term objectives. And so I can play with the scenarios, and I can say, okay, this is only 20 shares, but it's a $200 stock. It's going to have $4,000 in it, and okay, maybe I want to take 10 of it off the table here for risk management purposes. It's still going to get me to my goal if I hit all three targets, but it's not going to get me to my goal. I'm only going to pick up $120 if I can only get to that 212. So knowing all of these things takes all of the emotion, or I think it takes a lot of the emotion out of the trade. I know that I've got $120 at risk in this trade. If I get stopped out, that's $120, and that's just the way she goes. That's how it happens sometimes. But if I make that first target, I've got my $120 back, or $120 to the positive, I should say. And if I make the second and third target, I'm adding some along the way. So knowing these things, understanding the scenarios, really does take the emotions out of it, or it should. Being forewarned is forearmed, as they say. Rick, I do use volatility stops sometimes. I've got a particular setup there. To be honest with you, mostly what I use them for is validation. So if I'm not sure where I wanted to put my stop, I would look at this and say, well, the V-stop says I should be about $1.90 on this, but the way I do it is I just hold my mouse down here, and on the left-hand side you can see that I use V-stop of 10 periods, 1.5 ATRs, and it tells me about 191 is where I should have my stop. And I decided to have it a little bit tighter. But if I ever have a question, that's when I use the V-stop. I have some scans that work on V-stop and stuff, looking for reversals and then pullbacks, going from red to green, and then I'm looking for a pullback and that sort of stuff. But as terms of being a V-stop trader, if you will, getting in when it goes green and getting out when it turns red, that's not my style. I use it more as a confirmation and validation. Okay, guys, I think that should be it. Let's. Did I cover that trade plan well enough for you there, Kirk? I hope so. Pac, just because I like you, I'll look at that last one for you, and then we'll call it a night. Genworth Financial, I don't know if I would chase something that had that kind of a day, but let's put someplace right in there is a natural resistance level that we broke. Oh, you're welcome, Kirk. Let's go to a weekly chart and see what I come up with here. That was pretty close anyway. Someplace in that area. There's just too much clutter in there. So those look like two. I could probably drop a third one in someplace right around where we're at now. You can see all these highs and lows, and opens and closes hit right along that area. So this 350-ish area is a concern for that one. So that's what I would be looking at. I would probably want to, after this 1, 2, 3, 4 in a big candle, I'm probably going to be looking for some sort of nice consolidation here, and then that would make a buy. If I could get, personally, if I could get well, about there, give or take, is where I would want my stop to be. So I would be looking for a buy in that area. Ideally looking for a buy on the breakout here about 350 with a stop real tight down here about 340 something. And was it 405 for a first target, or 402? Let's be a little bit classy with it. So let's see, Genworth. It reported the 1st of May, so we're good there. We've got the market and the symbol working for us. The T line's above the 34. Plenty of liquidity. 9.5 million per day it trades in stock. Got a nice pattern there. That was a big candle. You've got a bullish pattern underway here. So let's plan it out with just one entry and one exit. Let's say that I've got a 350 entry and a 342 stop and a $4 even as my first target. It tells me I can do 1,500 shares, so we'll do 1,500. And it's going to be 4% of the account, but I can handle that. I'll only have $120 at risk. If I sold 1,000 of them at that, well, I guess only one target. It'll make sense to sell all of them, right? With one target, we're looking at a 14% trade and a chance to make 750. So that's 6 1/4 to 1, and you can certainly live with that. So that's how I would plan it out, and then I would just set, we're at 353. Let's see what if I move this up to 354. Whoops. Yeah, it's still 5 to 1, so I could do that and set myself an alarm on that, so that if we tick up the first tick of the day or early in the day, we get in on that, or whenever we hit that. And just click Move to Execution and then place the orders. So that's how I would trade that one. Okay, let me close this out. Okay, there we go. So again, I'm going to thank you for your time on this nice spring evening, and I appreciate your questions, your input, and I will look into all of those issues and see about adding those features, those reports we talked about and such. And even though you know that you can close those, no, Rick, that's not annoying. To me, it's good that people are interested. And if you've got a question, 100 other people do as well. But in addition to knowing that you can close those extra tabs, it might be nice to know which account is showing within the trade log or within the account manager. But again, I need to do some testing. I'm not sure what happens to performance when you have 5 trade logs or 4. for watch lists or whatever open. I'm not sure if it has any performance. It may. It may. I just don't know how much, and I can't give good feedback on what the parameters should be for best performance. But that I suggested to somebody earlier tonight that might be something to consider if you've got several trade logs open and several watch lists open. Maybe closing them may have a helpful effect. So again, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming out, and I look forward to talking to you soon. If you need to reach me, there's my contact information. Of course, submit a support ticket within the application also works, and we should be good from there. Thank you much, guys.